I finally picked a mirrorless Canon after years of reading and watching reviews. They all talk about EVFs and battery life, yada yada. It turned out those reviews either skimmed over certain details or they didn't mention them at all. And I wanted to highlight those details here, because had I known about them, I might have made the switch to mirrorless sooner. I'm comparing my Canon 5D Mark IV with a Canon R5, but I imagine the things that I'll cover will apply to a lot of different models and brands too. These two Canon cameras from the outside look very similar. They're just black boxes that make a picture. If you've got clients, your clients don't care about the differences between them. If you've got friends, your friends don't care about the differences between them either. But I care about the operational and physical differences just enough to make this video about them. Some of those differences made me want to cry for joy, and at the same time, other differences made me want to cry in agony. Let's start with the tripod mount, and that's how you know this is going to be a geeky video. I was stunned to find it wasn't in the middle of the body anymore. Look at this square Arca plate. It was perfectly centered on my 5D, but now it hangs off the front of the R5, and I'll probably have to use one of those miniature versions that were designed for really narrow cameras like a Leica. I'll put that in the category of mildly annoying. Physically, it could have been placed in the center, but they have to place it directly under the sensor plane so that when the camera swivels, the sensor rotates on axis. So how do you know where the sensor is? Check out the hieroglyphics on the top of the camera. On the 5D, the white sensor plane symbol is quite far back near the rear screen. On the R5 mirrorless, it's quite far forwards near the front end of the hot shoe. And they've done that for a couple of reasons. Firstly, there's a whole bunch of electronics to jam behind the sensor. And second, they need to have space for the EF lens mount adapter on the front of the camera. Had the sensor been near the back, there wouldn't have been enough space left for the lens adapters. And Canon knew firsthand the outrage that would have followed if DSLR owners couldn't use their expensive legacy lenses. Now, lots of lenses physically extend and retract when focusing. On the DSLR 5D, this $200 pancake lens, which has seen better days, retracts automatically when the camera is powered down. I love it. But this $2,000 85mm lens doesn't. They've got different motor types, I guess, but look at this. On the R5, I can turn the body off, and the exact same EF 85mm lens retracts. Oh my word. Thank you. I've no idea why the old camera couldn't achieve this feat, but at least the new ones can. Since forever, Canon DSLRs have had this intriguing configuration of metal tabs where the generic camera straps mount. I've never used them, but they annoy me anyway because they stick out when I put them in a bag. The left-hand tab on the DSLRs always jutted out for some reason, even though the ones on the right gracefully pointed upwards. Thankfully, after decades of no one asking, the left tab now neatly points upwards within the boundaries of the mirrorless camera bodies. It's a tiny upgrade, but I love it. Are you showing your sitter some pictures on the back screen of a mirrorless camera? You've got to be careful not to reach over the eyepiece when you try to zoom in or change pictures, because it'll turn the back screen off as it automatically senses your face, or at least it thinks it's your face, and switches between the back screen and the EVF. It looks like the camera is shorting out, but you've got to remember to pinch or swipe from underneath, or be old school and use the dials and buttons instead of the touchscreen. I've talked about the EF lens adapter already, but the extra flange distance and the huge diameter of the lens mount allows the use of adapters to almost every vintage lens mount you can think of, including Leica, Canon FD, M42, Olympus OM, and plenty of others. You can fit classic Nikon lenses on here. I even found a Pen F lens adapter. Half frame on a full frame, delicious. The ability to adapt lenses to mirrorless bodies isn't a huge secret, but one thing I didn't know about was that you can fit Canon's crop sensor EFS lenses on the mirrorless cameras when using the EF lens adapter. EFS lenses won't physically mount to Canon's full-frame DSLRs at all. They do fit onto the Canon full-frame mirrorless bodies, and this R5 automatically recognizes the lens and crops in for you. I don't know if there's a way to bypass the crop and get a full projection onto the sensor. If you know how, let me know in the comments below. Why would you want to use EFS lenses? Well, even though the EFS lenses, especially the kit lenses, they're slow, the image quality isn't stellar, but they are super lightweight. And if you're using a small gimbal, then a mirrorless body with a plastic lens might keep the rig under the recommended weight limit. Do you want to shoot video on an old 5D Mark IV? Just flip this switch and have at it. Want to do it on an R5? Press this mode button, then press this info button, then press the mode button again to select it. It's a first world problem, but that's a lot slower and a lot clunkier than it used to be. You win some, you lose some. Ever since my first DSLR, a Canon T3i, I switched the autofocus function from the shutter button to the back button. On the R5, you've now got the option to assign 2 back buttons for autofocus. This is the best feature I didn't even know that I wanted. I've got it set up so that you can use one back button for eye detection and the other for a single spot focus in case the eye detect isn't behaving or you're focusing on objects that aren't eyes. The 2 buttons available are the AF on button, which is the primary focus button, and the secondary star button to its right. You can only use the joystick control with the mode assigned to the primary AF on button. So if it's eye detect, you can use the joystick to select different eyes. If it's spot autofocus, you can move the spot around. You can't use the joystick with the secondary star button mode of autofocusing. So you get whichever eye the camera chooses, if it's eye focusing, or if you're on spot, it's just a AF spot in the middle that you can't move around. For portraits, I use the eye mode as the secondary focus type and the spot mode as the primary, so that I can move the spot point around to where I want it when the eye mode fails me. And at any time, you can still quickly change the AF to any type you want using the dedicated AF button on the back. It's a bit of faff to get all of this working. You've got to navigate to Custom Function page 3 in the menu, then pick Customize Buttons, and then select AF On button and change it to AF Start. Now you've got to press Info to get yet another screen where you can set the AF method to spot. Repeat all of this for the AE Lock button, but choose Eye Detect Autofocus for this button instead. Phew! At least you only have to do that once in your camera's lifetime. The mirrorless camera bodies are slightly narrower than the DSLRs that they replaced, but practically they're not that much narrower because the eyepiece sticks out so much. During my first week using the camera, the arch of my eye was sore because the eyepiece was jabbing into it. On the 5D Mark IV, it's closer to the body, so it didn't dig in as much. It reminds me of those eyepieces you got on camcorders, but unfortunately this one can't rotate, but it'd be cool if it did. Size reduction isn't the only exaggeration. The weight is exaggerated too. Yes, the bodies are lighter, but I'm likely to be carrying more lenses than bodies in my bag. So it's the lenses that move the needle on the weighing scales. Most RF lenses are heavier than the EF lenses that they replaced, so an R5 with an RF 85mm 1.2 weighs 1,840 grams, but the 5D Mark IV with an EF 85mm 1.2 only weighs 1,770 grams. The more lenses you carry, the heavier a mirrorless kit is compared to the equivalent DSLR kit. Right now I'm mixing an R5 with an EF 85mm lens, and including the adapter, this kit weighs 1,750 grams, a smidge over what the 5D Mark IV weighed. There are lots of tech upgrades in these new mirrorless cameras, and I like that the R5 has 2 card slots like my 5D Mark IV, and it's also got a swivel screen like my 6D Mark II. I used to have to use different cameras for different use cases before, and now it's all in one camera. But it was all of those little details that no one mentioned that caught my attention when I switched. Did you find any unforeseen quirks with your transition to mirrorless? Is there anything on your DSLR that you really miss? Let me know and I might compile a video on the things that you give up when you put your classic DSLR in the cupboard with your other vintage cameras.